They called it the Cradle of Madness, a whisper in ancient alien dialects, a curse in the diplomatic circles of the Galactic Council, a place mapped only in red bold, blinking warnings etched into every stellar chart since the formation of the Interstellar Accords. Its blue surface shimmered with clouds and oceans, so deceptively peaceful, but everyone who knew better stayed away. Earth, Sol 3, Class 12 Deathworld. No other planet bore that classification. Not even close, and yet, somehow, impossibly, something had survived there. Not just survived, thrived, spread, reached out into the stars on ships made of metal and madness. Humans. The assembly of civilized species had dismissed them for decades. At first, they were a curiosity, a backwater species emerging from an apocalyptic biosphere riddled with electromagnetic storms, predatory megafauna, tectonic instability, and an atmosphere that tried to kill them daily. No one expected the bipedal creatures with internal skeletons and emotional instability to last, and yet they endured. Not through adaptation, but through sheer force of will. The humans called it evolution. The Council called it insanity. Still, no action was taken. Until now. Fleet Commander Threx of the Varaxi Dominion floated in his command pod, chittering with amusement as the sleek invasion fleet coasted past Jupiter's storms. Behind him, a chorus of navigators clicked and murmured, adjusting the subspace. Folds. They don't even have planetary shields, one technician laughed. It's like they want to be conquered. Threx swiveled his eye stalks toward the central projection. Earth glowed softly in the void, small, green, and blue, fragile, primitive, emotionally unstable, divided, unarmed in orbit. He ticked off the list of human flaws like items from a menu. And most importantly, isolated. This will be quick. The Council had finally authorized a corrective pacification operation. A sterilizing blow, not annihilation. No. That would be uncivilized. But the humans needed to be contained before their expansion disrupted the harmony that had reigned across the galaxy for millennia. Their technological development had accelerated without oversight. Worse, they had refused all attempts at diplomatic integration, citing sovereignty and suspicion of galactic manipulation. The arrogance of the species was intolerable. Now it would be corrected. Threx's fleet was the best the Dominion had to offer. 1,200 warships equipped with neurocognitive dampeners, directed gravity weapons, and self-replicating occupation drones. Resistance would be minimal and psychological. Compliance assured within days. Earth would be folded into the civilized order like any other rebellious backwater. Threx watched as the lead ship entered Earth orbit. No resistance. Not even a warning beacon. A junior officer chirped. Recon probe launched. Entering lower atmosphere now. Display feed. A window opened, showing the drone's descent. Rolling oceans, massive mountain chains. Forests the size of nations. Storm systems danced across the globe like living creatures. Then the probe drifted toward a human city. Vertical metal structures towered over dense roadways. The place pulsed with activity. Strange music vibrated the streets. Colorful lights, reckless machines, and biological chaos. But no planetary defense. Grid, no orbital cannons. Not even a warning. Then a human child looked directly up at the drone and smiled. There was no possible way the child could have seen the cloaked probe. No indication of energy discharge. But the smile was deliberate, slow, curious, like a predator recognizing a toy. The smile spread wider. Then the feed went dark. Probe lost, said the officer, uncertain. No impact detected. Another window opened. A second scout unit. This one landed in what humans called a forest, lush, dense, and radiating biological hostility. Thermal signatures bloomed, mammals, birds, insects, far too many. Some moved with terrifying speed. The flora reacted to the drone's passage. "Don't like this," another technician muttered. "Everything here is alive ... and watching." Threx leaned forward, frowning. "Send 2 more units, different locations. Urban and rural. 2 more feeds activated." One surveyed a city square, humans gathering in protest over ... something. It was chaotic, loud, unpredictable. Some shouted. Some danced. Some just watched. No formation. No unity. Yet the drone logged a pattern of eye contact, several humans glancing at it despite full stealth protocols. The other drone entered a rural zone. It hovered near what appeared to be a dwelling smaller than the urban structures. A man stepped out. No weapons. Just a coat and a curious gaze. He looked up, as if sensing the probe. He raised a hand. Then he extended a single middle finger. The humans had seen them. Somehow, cloaking has failed? Threx asked. "No, sir," replied the technician. "Stealth is nominal. They should not be able to perceive us. And yet, they could." Threx's mood soured. "They're bluffing. Primitive intuition. Animals often react to changes in environment." But a fragment of doubt crept into his mind. Cold and persistent, he signaled the landing parties. Within moments, insertion craft launched toward the major population centers: London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, Johannesburg, New York. No resistance. No global warning system activated. No planetary militia. It was too easy. And that's what gnawed at him most. Because deep in his instincts, honed through a dozen conquests, Threx felt the smallest twinge of fear. Not because the humans had weapons, not because they had armies, but because they didn't. And yet, they watched, waited. And they smiled. Asterisk. The sky over Earth was quiet. Far too quiet for a planet being invaded. Fleet Commander Threx had expected chaos alarms, scrambling defenses, perhaps even a symbolic missile strike. But there was nothing, no mobilization, no centralized command structure coming online. The humans just went about their day. Cities bustled, traffic clogged their crude road systems, and people sipped caffeinated beverages as if an alien. Fleet wasn't descending on their atmosphere. It was unnerving. The first wave of insertion units deployed flawlessly. Elite Dominion infantry, biomechanical and efficient, touched down in 5 separate locations across the planet. Each was tasked with disabling infrastructure and securing communication hubs. According to simulations, the mission would be completed. In under 12 hours, they lost contact with 3 of the 5 within the first hour. Not in combat. Not in open warfare. They simply vanished. Environmental factors? Threx demanded. Negative, the analyst replied. No atmospheric interference. No solar flares. All vitals were stable one moment, then flatlined. All at once. Threx narrowed his eyes. Show me the last transmission. A grainy video flickered to life. The squad was moving through an urban street darkened, wet from recent rainfall. Neon signs in human script glowed overhead. The troopers advanced with their usual precision, scanning doorways and rooftops. Then came a sound, faint at first, almost like humming. A melody, low and ancient. Human music, the squad leader gave. The order to halt. Shadows shifted behind a wall. A figure stepped forward. It was a human, but unlike the average civilians they had observed. This one wore no uniform, no armor, just dark clothing and a long coat soaked by rain. No visible weapons. He smiled. Then, without warning, the transmission cut out. No gunfire, no energy spike. Just silence. The analyst gulped. All 10 life signs terminated within 3 seconds. How? We don't know. The second squad, stationed in what the humans called Tokyo, managed to establish a temporary perimeter around a communications facility. For a few minutes, all was proceeding according to protocol until the power grid in a 30-mile radius overloaded simultaneously. Cameras caught glimpses of masked figures on rooftops, armed with improvised weaponry. Then, as if on cue, the entire facility erupted in flames. The Dominion troops were genetically enhanced, shielded, trained for combat in hostile environments. But they weren't prepared for this kind of resistance. Unpredictable, localized, and deeply personal. One captured feed showed a human throwing a bottle filled with fire, primitive, yet effective. Another used an electromagnetic pulse cannon cobbled together from old car parts and microwave components. Threx gritted his mandibles. This isn't warfare. It's madness. No, sir, came a quiet voice from behind. It's culture. Threx turned to see an intelligence officer holding a datapad. Explain. The officer nodded toward the screen. Their history. I've been analyzing their archival footage. Their art forms are steeped in conflict. Their entertainment glorifies destruction, rebellion, even self-sacrifice. Their sports simulate war. Their games train reflexes and strategy under extreme stress. Violence isn't just an instinct, it's an identity. Another technician cut in. Sir, we're detecting encrypted signals from civilian satellites, not military amateur, hobbyist relays. The humans are using old tech to create a decentralized, global coordination system. They're improvising a planetary defense? Threx asked, disbelieving. They're not even calling it that. They just call each other, rally, volunteer. Threx's dorsal plates stiffened. Initiate neural suppression protocol. Subdue the major cities, target population centers, and eliminate resistance. A storm of Dominion ships broke atmosphere and rained down drones across the continents. Neural suppressors pulsed over urban zones, sending waves of sub-aural frequencies meant to paralyze and pacify biological life. It had worked on hundreds of species before. This time, nothing. The humans did not drop. If anything, they seemed angrier. In a city called Chicago, footage showed a woman screaming through a bullhorn. They're trying to silence us. Fight back! Crowds surged forward. Riot police had been overtaken hours ago, not by the aliens, but by their own people, now armed with scavenged weapons and street knowledge. Molotov cocktails soared. Makeshift barricades formed with breathtaking speed. And then came something even worse. They started smiling. Footage from London, Mumbai, Seattle, Lagos, they were all the same. Human civilians with burning eyes and grins that didn't match the desperation of their situation. They moved like predators, not prey. They acted like they'd been waiting for this. In one transmission, a captured Dominion soldier was shown tied to a chair. A human stood over him, blood smeared on his face. You came here thinking we were afraid of death, he said, almost tenderly. You thought pain would stop us. You didn't understand. He leaned in close. We were born in pain. The screen cut out. Threx backed away from the command table. This was no longer a pacification mission. It was a quagmire. They had underestimated not only human technology, but their psychology. Begin withdrawal of ground teams, he said. Another voice interrupted. Too late. We just lost another dropship. Local militia humans in body armor ambushed it with artillery from a museum exhibit. They're repurposing their own history as weapons. Threx looked at Earth one last time. And Earth smiled back. Asterisk above the smoldering cities of Earth, the Dominion fleet hung in low orbit like a blade poised to fall. But that blade was trembling now. Commander Threx paced the bridge, mandibles clicking. In agitation, every data readout contradicted protocol. Every psychological profile of humanity now seemed like a bad joke, written by scholars who had never dared set foot on a Deathworld. What was meant to be a swift surgical pacification was rapidly spiraling into a nightmare. He needed answers. Activate the bio-neural analyzer. I want a full scan of every human combatant we've encountered, he ordered. A glowing sphere expanded. In the center of the bridge, displaying dozens of biosignatures from the ground. Heart rates, cortisol levels, neural patterns. The AI's voice was slow, uncertain. "Commander, the data suggests significant stress resilience, elevated adrenaline without degradation. No signs of shock under extreme conditions." Threx frowned. "That's impossible. They should be overwhelmed by now. They've suffered thousands of casualties." The AI paused. "Sir, ... They seem to be getting stronger." Before Threx could respond, a warning light pulsed. "Unidentified object emerging from the Pacific Ocean," reported the tactical officer. "Massive construct, rising at high velocity." "Another human city?" "No, Commander. This is a machine." The bridge's main view screen shifted. Water erupted in a titanic column as something breached the surface. It rose higher and higher until the clouds obscured its top. Metallic limbs unfurled from the construct's sides. It bristled with turrets, launchers, and glowing reactors. It wasn't sleek like Dominion tech. It was industrial, ugly, covered in warning signs and graffiti. A Frankenstein's monster of engineering from dozens of different centuries, fused into a single towering engine of destruction. Text scrolled across its hull, sprayed in giant white letters. "Godzilla Protocol, Mark II." Threx's voice dropped to a whisper. "What is that thing?" "Sir," said the science officer, astonished, "we believe it's a subterranean defense platform, possibly constructed in secret over the last century, hidden under the oceanic crust, powered by geothermal and fusion cores." "By whom?" "Multiple human factions, perhaps working together, ... or perhaps not. There are signatures from at least 9 separate nation-states and corporations embedded into its systems." Threx's dorsal spines quivered. 9 enemies work together to build that? "Unclear, sir. They may have built it in competition, or just to spite one another." Threx's blood chilled. The towering behemoth launched into the sky, climbing on magnetic lift engines. As it passed the stratosphere, its weapons locked onto the Dominion fleet. "Evasive action!" he roared. The ship jolted violently. Plasma beams erupted from the machine, cutting through Dominion cruisers like paper. One exploded in a silent flash. Another spiraled out of control and disintegrated in the atmosphere. Within minutes, 17 ships were lost, and all the while, Earth's news networks broadcast the event live. The human media didn't cower. They celebrated. Commentators shouted through the chaos, "We told them not to mess with Earth. And that's what you get. Aliens Deathworld represent." Then came the worst moment yet. A second alert sounded. Another object detected. This one in orbit, hidden behind the moon. Threx leaned in. "Another machine?" "No, a ship." A cloaked human vessel, massive, angular, and silent, drifted out from the moon's shadow. It had no official designation, no registry. "Where did they get that?" Threx demanded. The AI answered. "Historical telemetry suggests it was constructed in pieces over the last 70 years, possibly as part of their so-called black budget operations. They built a stealth battleship in orbit." "And never told anyone?" "Correct." The ship powered up. A single audio transmission cut through every frequency, reaching all Dominion vessels in perfect translation. The voice was gravelly calm and entirely human. "This is the UN's dead hand. We've been waiting for you." Threx stared at the screen. The human ship fired. One Dominion carrier vanished in a ripple of blue light. Threx turned to his officers. "They're using forbiddance. Energy types. Exotic matter collapse. They shouldn't have this technology." "They shouldn't," said the intelligence officer, wide-eyed. "But they do." Then, something even more chilling. Intercepted Dominion signals began failing. The humans were jamming not just their comms, but their thought paths, disrupting the biopsionic resonance that connected high-ranking Dominion officers through their neural implants. "What's happening?" Threx shouted. The technician turned pale. They've learned to disrupt our minds. They're hacking our biology. A deep silence fell over the bridge. This was not a primitive species making a final stand. This was a predator in its natural habitat, finally revealing the teeth it had hidden behind smiles and disorganization. Commander Threx collapsed into his seat. We miscalculated. Outside the viewport, the Earth loomed larger than ever. Not a backwater, not a wilderness. A FORTRESS, a crucible. The one true Deathworld. And now, the galaxy would remember. The Dominion fleet had never retreated from a subclass civilization before. It had no protocol for losing to a faster-than-light species. But orbit over Earth had become a graveyard. Debris from Viraxi warships littered the upper atmosphere, burning like falling stars. Human resistance, far from crumbling under pressure, had only grown more organized, more surgical. Worse, every attempt to adapt Dominion tactics was met with a brutal, almost personal countermeasure. They're not reacting like soldiers, murmured a communications officer. They're fighting like insurgents who already won. Commander. Threx had seen plenty of revolts in the past, species lashing out in desperation. This wasn't that. Earth was bleeding, yes, but it was bleeding on purpose, baiting them, luring them into every city, every forest, every corner of terrain humans had spent millennia surviving. He turned to the holomap. 1,000 red marks, casualty points. From ground operations, Rhodes's forces had taken were now dead zones. Forests swallowed armored units whole. Civilian structures hid resistance nests with terrifyingly advanced tactics. One region stood out. Central Asia. Dominion forces had landed near what was once the Bikonar Cosmodrome, planning to take control of orbital launch facilities. They walked into a ghost base. Threx had watched the footage personally. Empty hangars, cracked runways, long dead infrastructure. His troops advanced cautiously. Then the launch silos opened. 30 vertical doors slammed back, revealing Cold War era ICBM as relics of human paranoia and overkill. At first, the Dominion commanders laughed. Obsolete projectiles. They sneered. Then the missiles launched. Only they weren't nuclear. They were kinetic rod slabs of tungsten, accelerated into low orbit and redirected by hidden magnetic grids. The results were biblical. One rod pierced a Dominion troop barge at 12,000 meters per second, turning it into metal vapor. Another struck the landing platform, obliterating everything in a 10-kilometer radius. Human voices crackled over comms. Welcome to Earth. Please mind the falling gods. Threx stared at the data feed. Sir, said the science officer, this wasn't a panic response. These weapons were pre-positioned, coordinated. By who? Multiple human factions again. But they're coordinating with a speed and efficiency not seen in any other species. The bridge door opened. Sub-Commander Kex arrived, dragging a wounded Viraxi trooper behind him. The soldier had lost both arms and half his exo-armor. His eyes were wide, unfocused. He survived New Delhi, Kex said grimly. And he keeps repeating the same phrase. Threx approached. The soldier's mandibles trembled. They wear masks, faces of animals, fire in their eyes. No fear at all. What masks? Threx asked. The soldiers shook, whispering. They said, remember the jungle, remember the desert, remember the void. They train for this. They train to fight gods. The bridge fell silent. On screen, new alerts flashed. Dominion command bunkers in South America had fallen. Not to military strikes, but to mining guilds, indigenous ranger teams, and local cartels. Groups that barely acknowledged each other were coordinating in real time to dismantle the invaders like scavengers picking apart a corpse. One Dominion captain tried to negotiate a ceasefire with a human representative in Australia. The man arrived. Alone, no armor, no weapons. He carried a folding chair, set it down. Sat across from the alien, and simply said, "We've already buried 2 empires here. Yours makes 3. Then he pulled out a detonator. The entire base vanished in white light, another blip on the map. Threx turned slowly. "How are they doing this?" The AI's voice was quiet. "They've turned the invasion into a game. Distributed command across social platforms. Each region's resistance has its own leaderboards, objectives, victory conditions." "You mean?" "Yes, Commander. They gamified the war." Threx's dorsal spikes rose in alarm. "We're not facing a centralized military. We're facing 8 billion tacticians. 8 billion minds trained to resist domination, not by biology, but by culture." The science officer added grimly, "They don't just endure trauma, they romanticize it. Study it, weaponize it." Another red alert. A large Dominion battleship in orbit was under coordinated cyber assault. Not physical, not psionic, digital. Human hackers had broken through its firewalls using ancient radio signals from the 1980s. They hijacked the ships. Auditory systems and blasted a song, "Highway to the Danger Zone." As the bridge officers recoiled in confusion, the hijacked vessel turned toward its own fleet and opened fire. Threx had seen enough. "Prepare fallback procedures. Pull the fleet into lunar orbit. We'll reassess and strike from range." "No." "Commander," said the AI softly. "They've already taken the moon." Threx turned. "What?" "Satellite telemetry confirms a launch from Earth 24 hours ago. Human astronauts, 6 of them, landed at the Shackleton crater. They've deployed a railgun emplacement. Covert. Railgun? They've repurposed a mining laser and lunar dust accelerators. It's already active." A thundering sound reverberated through the hull. The dead hand fired again. Another Viroxy dreadnought disintegrated. Commander Threx clenched all 6 of his fists. They weren't preparing for an invasion. They've been preparing for every invasion. A final message crackled across the Dominion frequencies, this time from a source outside Earth's atmosphere, an unknown human transmission beacon. It played an old human voice, aged and resolute. "If you ever come for Earth, you better bring a god. And make sure he packs a lunch." Then silence. And every Dominion ship knew. This was no longer a campaign. It was survival. Asterisk, the Dominion fleet hovered in lunar orbit, battered and bleeding. Its once imperial formation, now a fractured shell of pride. Ships drifted with scorched hulls and missing decks. Repair drones swarmed like panicked insects, patching wounds that only grew deeper. What was meant to be a glorious conquest had turned into a war of attrition against a species that had never once asked for mercy and would not offer it in return. Commander Threx stared into the cold void beyond the bridge's viewport. Earth rotated silently beneath them. A blue marble wrapped in clouds, peaceful, deceptive. "Report," he muttered. 73% of remaining ground forces are no longer responsive," said Sub-Commander Kex grimly. "Some are presumed wiped out. Others have integrated." Threx turned sharply. "Integrated? They've been captured, but not executed, not interrogated. They're being studied." "Studied by who?" Kex hesitated. "A human organization calling itself DARPA, another called the SCP Foundation, several private entities. They're dissecting our weapons, our armor, our biotech, and posting crowdsourced countermeasures online." Threx's blood turned cold. "They're turning our own technology against us. Worse than that, they were turning it into open-source warfare." Before Threx could respond, another voice interrupted. It was the Dominion's High Scion Relay, a direct neural link reserved for only the most urgent galactic communications. "Commander." "Threx," came a voice unlike any other, deep, resonant, and pulsing with command. "Supreme Strategist Y Lax. He bowed instinctively, his spines twitching. "Strategist, I await your directive. I have seen the reports. The losses, the anomalies, the voice said coldly. "You are hereby authorized to deploy Omega contingency." Threx stiffened. "Sir, Omega is forbidden by Galactic War. Protocols. So is Earth's existence," Yelex snapped. "You face an enemy that is not bound by the known rules of civilization. Use Omega. Cleanse the planet." "Yes, strategist," Threx said, already feeling the weight of genocide forming in his chest. He turned to his crew. "Prepare the shard cannons. Load the black cord warheads. We will raise this world from orbit." But even as the command echoed across the fleet, something changed. The lights flickered, a sound low. Rising hum began vibrating through the hull. Then every console on the bridge shut down. "What is this?" Keck shouted. "We're being the..." Screens lit back up, but not with Dominion readouts. Human script flooded the displays. Glitchy text, symbols, maps. And then a voice. Not a human one, something older. "Protocol Phoenix. Now online. What is this transmission?" Threx barked. The AI answered, for once sounding afraid. "It's coming from beneath Antarctica. An energy signature previously undetected. Buried for millennia. Sir, it's not from this era." A beam of light surged from Earth's southern pole, pure, focused energy. It pierced the atmosphere and struck one of the shard cannon carriers. The entire vessel vaporized in silence. "Identify that weapon," Threx demanded. "No record exists," said the AI. "It's beyond human technology, possibly pre-human." On Earth, seismic events registered near the South Pole. Ice sheets collapsed. A structure massive, black, impossible rose from under the frozen continent. And for the first time, the Dominion's deep archive translators failed. They could not read what was written across its ancient, obsidian surface. But the humans could. Global broadcasts interrupted simultaneously. Every screen on Earth phones, computers, holograms lit up with one message. "The old ones sleep beneath. Humanity guards the lock." Then came the twist Threx could never have predicted. Across Earth, humans were not surprised. They were celebrating. Every resistance cell, every digital forum, every news outlet began repeating the same phrase. "The vault is open." "Are they activating some kind of hidden weapon?" Kex asked. "No," said a young Dominion analyst. "They've been protecting it." "What?" The analyst looked sick. "It was never about defeating us. This whole time, the humans have been trying to prevent us from going too far. Because if we did..." Another alarm screamed. Telemetry from the South Pole read an impossible power spike. Then came a pulse psionic, massive and ancient. It swept through the fleet like a scream from the birth of the universe. Every Viraxia officer collapsed to the floor in agony, and within it, they heard something. A thought, not in words, but in intent. "We see you now." Ships began self-destructing. Not by human weapons, but by internal failures. Dominion biotech began rejecting commands, as if it too recognized something far older and far more terrifying than galactic authority. Threx forced himself upright. "Cut the connection. Shut it down." "We can't," screamed the AI. "We're not in control anymore. We haven't been for hours." And finally, the truth clicked. Earth hadn't just survived because it was tough, or wild, or chaotic. It had survived because it was the gatekeeper. All along, humanity had played the fool, the underdog, the upstart. But beneath their madness and memes, their savage humor and crude weapons, they had been guarding a secret older than the stars, and the Dominion had just knocked on the wrong door. One last message rang through the bridge's failing systems, this time from a human voice. Certain. "I don't know what species you are, or what made you think Earth would be easy. But I'll say this, we're not just defending our world, we're defending yours." And in that moment, as the Black Pyramid rose higher from the ice, as the stars dimmed for a heartbeat, as something vast stirred beneath the Earth's crust, Commander Threx finally understood. They had not triggered a war. They had unleashed an extinction. And humanity? Humanity was the only thing holding it back. Asterisk, the black structure now towered over Antarctica like a monument to dread itself, its spires splitting clouds, casting shadows that bent light unnaturally. The minion satellites malfunctioned in its presence. Scans returned nothing but static and whispered code strings. It was not just a weapon, it was a warning system. A lock, a tomb, and the lock had cracked. Above Earth, the Dominion fleet spun into chaos. Hulls shimmered under stress fields. AI cores broke down under cascading logic failures. And Dominion psionics, once the pride of their empire, clawed at their own minds, trying to erase what they had just heard. On Earth, humanity didn't. Panic. They mobilized. All over the world, resistance cells transitioned into strike teams. Radio silence broke as hidden protocols activated. Dozens of international military satellites reactivated, some previously believed lost to decommissioning. From Mount Cheyenne to the ruins of old Vladivostok, encrypted bunkers emerged from camouflage. Old flags were dusted off. Forgotten oaths renewed, because humanity had always known this day might come. High over the Pacific, a Dominion dreadnought, the Torvax Rain, readied its antimatter lance for one final attempt to crack the vault. It charged its weapon, blinding, in ultraviolet pulses, and fired straight into the structure's heart. The beam never landed. Instead, it curved. Reality buckled as a gravitational lens, artificial and precise, bent the attack away. It slammed into the Indian Ocean instead, boiling thousands of cubic kilometers of water instantly. The Torvax Rain didn't have time to react before 6 streaks of light arced up from the atmosphere, each tipped with human ingenuity and unrelenting fury, kinetic lances. Mach 30. The dreadnought exploded in silence, its remains tumbling into fire and sea. On the lunar surface, Commander Threx watched the destruction unfold with numb horror. His voice cracked. Status? Kex answered grimly, "We are being hunted." Their ship's primitive, small but fast, inexplicably fast. They're using orbital slingshots, dark energy bursts from their own planet's magnetic field. Some of them are even piloted manually. Threx stared. Manually? Yes, no AI. No autopilot. Just humans strapped into their death machines, laughing. Even now, as the Dominion's elite command ship, the Vex Harrow, prepared to retreat, it came under attack from a trio of repurposed cargo shuttles loaded with railguns and chemical. Thrusters, they're trading lives for tactical advantage, the science officer gasped. Their entire doctrine violates standard logic matrices. Because humanity didn't fight by rules, they fought by story. Each fallen hero became a legend. Each sacrifice became a rallying cry. Aboard the Vex Harrow, as alarms howled and the bridge lurched from successive impacts, the final front was forming. A fleet of human vessels patched together from repurposed space shuttles, ancient Cold War platforms, and brand new orbital defense rigs assembled in low orbit. They were hideous. By Dominion standards, uneven, brutalist, covered in graffiti, insignias war paint, but they moved like a pack of wolves. They danced through debris, avoided laser bursts, and answered with payloads far heavier than physics should allow. Then the final wave came. Not ships. People. Thousands of drop pods screamed through the black human boarding crews, special forces, veterans from every country, culture, and creed. They invaded the invaders. The Dominion flagship, Vex Harrow, shook as its hull was breached from 20 points simultaneously. Human Marines poured in silent, brutal, synchronized, powered armor, made from alloys reverse-engineered from crashed alien tech. Weapons loaded with smart rounds, M-flechettes, and old-fashioned steel. Every Dominion soldier that stood in their way was cut down with a precision that bordered on divine. The bridge was the last to fall. Threx stood at the center, wounded but defiant, flanked by his last guards. The doors blew open. From the smoke stepped a single human, not armored, not armed, wearing a simple black uniform with an old Earth flag on the shoulder. He raised his hand, and the Varaxi guards froze. Not by force, by choice. Threx looked into the eyes of a species that had clawed its way out of extinction, across its own planet, into the stars, and now stood above even gods. Who are you? He asked. The human stepped forward, voice calm. We are what happens when you underestimate the unbreakable. You came to conquer Earth, but Earth is not just our home. It is our crucible. The human walked past the Dominion guards, who dropped their weapons without command. You thought we were divided, weak, primitive, but we were just waiting for the right storm. He stood nose to nose with the broken commander. You didn't invade a world. You awakened a species. The Varaxi commander trembled. And from the human's ear came a voice. Calm, female, military, control to all orbit units, target neutralized, vault secure. Awaiting new orders. The human turned, leaving the shattered bridge behind as the Dominion flagship's AI began to purge itself in defeat. Above Earth, the remnants of the fleet scattered, ships powered down. Some self-destructed, others simply ran. The message was clear. Earth was no one's to conquer, and those who tried would not just face humanity, they'd face what humanity was protecting and what humanity had become. The battlefield fell silent. Above Earth, the shattered remains of the Dominion fleet drifted like cosmic litter, scorched metal and frozen, corpses reflecting the blue glow of the planet they had so grievously underestimated. Ships once hailed as invincible now hung lifeless, gutted from within by improvised human weapons, sabotaged by code worms, or obliterated by kinetic strikes that defied the Dominion's understanding of primitive warfare. The few remaining Dominion vessels limped toward deep space, engines sputtering, psionic communications jammed by Earth's still active AMP curtain. No pursuit followed. Humanity didn't need to chase them. The lesson had already been burned into the fabric of the stars. Deep in the Dominion's galactic core, strategist Yalax reviewed the final transmission from Commander Threx, a flickering, partially corrupted recording showing the moment the Vex Harrow fell. He watched as Threx, the pride of the Varaxi military caste, lowered his head before a single unarmed human. Not from fear. From something deeper. Recognition that the silence in the Dominion war chamber was absolute. Rows of telepathic advisors, military, tacticians, and historians dared not speak. Finally, Yalax stood. What did we awaken? He asked the room. No one answered. One of the science adepts, a withered being with 10,000 years of cultural archives stored in their implants, finally spoke. We thought Earth was a death world in environmental terms. It is, but what we failed to account for is that it also forged death-minded life. Yalax narrowed his eyes. Explain. The adept sighed. Humans evolved on a planet where everything kills: weather, disease, predators, even other humans. Their psychology is not wired for submission. It is wired for escalation, for defiance. They do not fear the end. They weaponize it. He activated a holoscreen displaying centuries of Earth history, wars, revolutions, disasters. Footage of soldiers dragging their bodies through mud, civilians shielding children from bombs, firefighters running into infernos, astronauts volunteering for missions they might not survive. They don't just endure chaos, they run toward it. It's woven into them. Their pain doesn't break them, it binds them. Yalax looked back at Earth's image on the display, still scarred, still burning in some places, but proud, triumphant, alive. And the vault? The adept shook his head. It is sealed again. Somehow. No signal, no reading. Their people say little about it. Only that it was never meant to be opened. Another figure in the shadows, a diplomat, once stationed in Sol, spoke for the first time. They have myths. You know, old ones. about entities that sleep beneath the earth, not gods, monsters, and they truly believe, that they are the last line of defense against them. He leaned forward, and I fear they are right. Far below, on Earth's surface, humanity was already rebuilding. The war had united them, not perfectly but permanently. Old rivalries had faded, burned away by shared blood and mutual victory. Cities were being reconstructed. The orbital defense network, once fragmented and hidden, was now online and coordinated. World leaders no longer argued over borders, but over strategy. Global defense wasn't an idea now, it was a doctrine, and in the heart of the Antarctic vault, sealed once more beneath kilometers of steel and ancient mechanisms, a single red light pulsed slowly, silently. Watching dot above it, an elite unit of soldiers stood guard, not because they were ordered to, but because they volunteered. Not to protect just humanity, but everything else. From what might still slumber in a military hall in New Berlin, medals were given out not by nations, but by a council of survivors. Pilots who launched suicide intercepts. Hackers who disabled entire cruisers with a few lines of code. Soldiers who had faced Dominion psionics and won not with superior genetics, but with sheer grit and determination. No one walked away unchanged. But none of them walked away ashamed. In one of the few remaining Dominion warcruisers fleeing the Sol system, a young Viraxi ensign stared back at the receding image of Earth. She whispered something her superior didn't hear. The officer turned. "What did you say?" She looked up, eyes wide with awe. "I said, we didn't fight a species." "What? Then?" "We fought a force of nature." And she wasn't wrong. Across the galaxy, the legend of Earth spread like wildfire. Tales of iron-hearted humans who laughed in the face of death, who fought with everything from scrap metal to stolen alien weapons, who refused to die quietly. Tales of the Black Vault, the hidden horrors beneath the Antarctic ice, and the fact that it was humans who stood between the galaxy and the unknown. Some species began placing warning beacons near Sol's edge. Others marked Earth on their maps not as a target but as a sacred exclusion zone. Approach only with peace. Observe from afar. Never provoke. Humanity, once mocked as uncivilized, now stood mythic, terrifying in its resilience, impossible in its courage, and eternal in its will to survive. Back on Earth, in a small home lit by evening sun, an old woman who had lost her son to the first orbital drop sipped tea and looked out her window. She smiled as kids played under a rebuilt skyline. Her grandson looked up. "Grandma, do you think they'll come back, the aliens?" She chuckled softly. "Not for a long, long time." "Why?" "Not?" She looked up at the stars. "Because now, they know better."